Now this play was written around 1930 and then was set in the 1930s. Have you chosen to stay true to that, or have you altered it a little bit?
Yes, we have chosen to stick with this period. 1929 is where we set it. Part of it is it's an extraordinarily contemporary play, still valid today, we think. But it really is as a result of the Jazz Age. It's bucking convention from the time that it was written. So we thought it would be fun to keep it in that setting.
And I know one of the things that struck me is we're talking about a divorced couple. And obviously the thoughts on divorce today versus the 1930s is drastically different. I would think that it was much more taboo in the 1930s. How do you think that translates to today's audience?
Do you guys want to take that?
Well, it was funny because we were just talking about that in rehearsal the other day, where what these people have done and what they're about to do, that today is still drastic, but what it was in that era was huge in terms of, you know, I don't know how much we want to release about the plot, but stilting on honeymoon night, or, you know, taking off a possibility of it, and the fact that that then was considered completely taboo, and how we handled that compared to now, it would still be horrible, but not as horrible as it was then.
Yeah, it's strange that that, you know, we tend to look back at different periods and think that people were somehow different in earlier times, or that because it's a time before we were born that the human nature was somehow different. And even though there was social, the way they looked at divorce was much different in the 30s and the 20s, and divorce, I would say, these are still very contemporary human beings. So it's sort of surprising to see how much human nature is the same, and you know, even through time.
And love.
And love.
You know, that it trumps all thought about what should do, what one shouldn't do.
And so much of this play is about that private life versus public life. And the characters that these guys are playing, that Aaron is playing Amanda and Robert's playing Elyot, are so much like one another. People always say that opposites attract, but in this case, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not true.
It's true.
Well, at the crux of it is Private Lives a love story.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Very much so. I think we all have somebody somewhere in our lives that we can say was, you know, that there was a period at least that they were our soulmate, or that we felt a really strong connection to. And this play kind of portrays that sort of relationship. You know, you find someone that for some reason you really connect with, and it's not always the right person for you to be with, but you know, you kind of go through figuring out how you're going to navigate that relationship.
At one point in the script, Amanda's character talks about being with Elyot, and that they were like chemical experiment with one another. And that is what they're all fighting.
Nasty little matrimonial bottle. Yeah, just, yeah, fuming.
And that's part of passion. You know, the opposite of passion is hate. It's not indifference.
Yeah. They say that you can't hate someone unless you love them. You can't truly hate somebody unless you love them.
And they have that, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Given how volatile at times, if that's a correct way to kind of describe the relationship, what do you think that says about the state of marriage? Institution of marriage.
Well,
No marriage is perfect. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on how this kind of speaks to that.
I think that marriage is difficult, and I think that anyone who's married knows that, and that it takes work. And I think the problem is that with Elyot and Amanda, they're so stubborn in their own thought. And I think a true marriage takes a lot of compromise, and they are not willing to compromise. It's my way or the highway, and for him it's the same thing, so they just keep on hitting. Yeah. But desperately in love with each other. So it's fun to watch. I mean, it's like we talk about it, but it's hysterical. I mean, it's funny to watch two people just go and go and go, never getting anywhere. Yeah.
And I would imagine there's a certain level of intimacy. Given that the playwright wrote this for a friend, he had someone in mind that he knew, and they actually did the first production together. How do you as actors establish that level of intimacy going into this production?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, as a director, what do you think?
No, I think so much of it is about casting. It is.
Yeah.
It's about chemistry that you both had from the get-go. But it's a very fast process fast friends are made in rehearsal, and things are at stake. We're so vulnerable that one day feels like a year sometimes in a rehearsal, I think.
You know, you'll read things about other actors who feel like, oh, you know, they can only have chemistry on stage with someone if it's someone they've known for a long time, or, and really in a professional situation, you rarely get that sort of luxury, and it's sort of, I would say, a tool of the trade. You have to have kind of perfected a way to make yourself vulnerable very quickly, and there are, I don't know exactly what they are, but there are tricks that you kind of learn on how to create that chemistry on stage. And sometimes it works better than others, I guess, but as long as both actors are vulnerable and really open, and the script helps, it's something that can be done fairly quickly. But
plus, you both have a wonderful sense of humor, which I think is half the battle. And we have relationships with one another from other reasons, for other projects. Robert and I have worked together.
Gosh. Many times.
Many times, as we're both ensemble members. And Aaron and I have worked together 3 times, I think. So we share, we're sort of like a moving family, I think.
Wonderful. How would you describe your character, Elyot?
Fastidious comes to mind right away, but I think he thinks himself to be very, very cultured and very well-traveled and very open-minded when probably, in fact, he's not. I think it's he's guilty of a very typical human trait where he thinks he has very open mind and very worldly ideas about things, but especially in the context of the show, he I think finds out that he still has very strict ideas about what women should or should not be, and even though he loves Amanda as a wild personality and kind of bucks convention, he still has very strong ideas about what convention she should still be adhering to. So it's fun to play him because he's complicated. It's not a cookie cutter sort of just uptight Englishman. I think he's aware that he can be a little bit of a cad, but he's also very, very funny. I wish I could say the sort of things. I wish I could be as well spoken in real life as he is in his world.
And what about Amanda?
She is wild. It's been interesting. The playwright gives you so many clues as to who these people are, and in memorizing the lines, I've learned that she doesn't use a lot of extra words. She says very specifically what she wants and what she needs and how it is, and it's very simple. So I think she's eloquent on that level, very bright and smart and witty, very stubborn, and I think in that day, it was much different than it is now. I think it was more of an oddity then, and so that's fun, where she's a risk taker and a daredevil and knows herself. On the other side of it, she's so desperately in love with him, so she's so open and vulnerable. Her heart, even though it's been so hurt by him, she's so willing to go back, because she's a romantic. I think that's, yeah, she's a romantic.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, it's really fun in researching Noel Coward, and he was quite famous for being a good storyteller and a terrific house guest. But ultimately, I think he was a very lonely person and afraid of breaking. And so he surrounded himself with his friends and wrote plays for his friends so that he would always have someone to be with. And I think that's really at the crux of who these two people are. When they talk about how their hearts were broken when they broke up. And so they decided to change, to find new partners, but they couldn't. So they were so afraid of being alone that it's like those two magnets. You know, when I was a kid, I used to have those black and white Scotty Terrier magnets. They're so fun. That they push each other and pull each other apart constantly. It's interesting.
Yeah, the dance that's done.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Because at the start of the show, they're trying desperately to fit into the mold of what they think they should be doing. They're in loves that are more wise and calm and something cozy. I think one of the lines I have is that love should be tremendously cozy to smooth your nerves when you're tired, and devoid of scenes and jealousies. And you kind of see initially that they're both sort of chafing a little bit at the new constraints of conventional love or the perfect mate.
Well, it sounds like they're lying to themselves, looking for this
Trying
perfect,
to.
this ideal
Trying
that
to.
just is not there.
Right.
Well, this sounds like a lot of fun, and it sounds like you're enjoying the work you're doing.
Very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for joining me and discussing the upcoming production, and best of luck.
Thanks so much. Come out and
you.
see us at the McAninch Arts Center.
And for more information, you can call 630-942-4000 or visit www.atthemac.org.